Can you introduce yourself and tell us how did you get involved with brown cotton?
J'aime la coton jaune. I love brown cotton. I'm Jerry Hale. I'm a native of Louisiana. I'm a fourth generation cotton planter. My grandfather, great grandfather, and father were all sharecroppers. And that's kind of my heritage. I grew up on a 7,000 acre cotton plantation. The first cotton plantation I lived on was the Romer Plantation, which was owned by our past governor, Buddy Romer, and then moved to a larger plantation. It was 7,000 acres. My dad was the planter and ran the cotton gin. So I worked all my life very hard to get an education, became an engineer to get off the plantation, and now I'm right back in it planting cotton again. So that's how I got to this point.
All right, wonderful. So brown cotton is not common, is it?
Brown cotton is not common, but brown cotton is the first cotton that was in Louisiana. White cotton came later. Brown cotton migrated up from the Yucatan Peninsula, probably by the Spanish or indigenous Indians, which occupied Louisiana at that time. And the cotton came up, and when the Acadians were exiled in 1765 and came to South Louisiana, they found this brown cotton and started using it for their textiles. While they lived in Nova Scotia, they used sheep wool because of a short growing season. So they would shear the sheep, wash the wool, and they would dye it in a butternut or black walnut hulls and make it a uniform brown color. Well, when they got to South Louisiana, wool is a little bit too much for our hot weather and stickiness here, but they found this natural fiber that looked almost exactly like the wool they had used, and so they started using this cotton to make all their utilitarian clothing, bedding, towels, that kind of thing, and that's how I got the name Acadian brown cotton.
So with the different varieties of brown cotton, are there different shades or colors that you can aim
There
for?
are all types of colored cottons naturally. There's blue cotton, black cotton, red cotton, copper cotton, green cotton, and of course white cotton. The reason the colored cottons are not surviving is you can take white cotton and dye it 40 different shades of brown or 40 different shades of green. So it's more economical to dye it than to grow different shades. And that's why all the colored cottons are losing popularity. So the brown cotton seed that we grow has been in an Acadian family for over 200 years and passed down. And I actually have a genealogy of the family. So this cotton seed has lasted for a long time. In 2017, I met with a group of concerned spinners, weavers, and other people concerned about history and agriculture and art in Louisiana. And they were trying to find someone who would grow this cotton seed and multiply the seed. And they commissioned me in 2017 to grow the seed. I got 2 cups of seed in 2017. In 2018, I donated over 40 pounds of seed to the University of Lafayette Cade Seed Bank for preservation. In 2019, I donated over 200 pounds of seed to the UL Cade Seed Bank. So we're very involved in providing and maintaining the seed. We photograph 1800s and early 1900 Acadian hand-spun and woven blankets, and we replicate those exact patterns. We do a lot of education with Acadian history, Louisiana history, and Louisiana agriculture. For example, I have a lot of youth group that come, and every year they're part of my planting in the spring to help educate them how things are planted, where they come from, and then at the end of the year when school comes back in session, they come back and they pick. I bring my gin out, we gin cotton, we talk about how things are spun and woven. So we're constantly doing education programs.
Okay. Wonderful. So you have a setup that takes it all the way from planting to woven material. I see you have
Correct.
examples for us.
Right. So out on our display tables out front, you'll see from seed all the way to the finished textiles. So what we have here today is I have a few textiles. This textile is from the Mouton plantation, and it's probably over 100 years old. It's all cotton, and it's brown and white, and it's in really, really good shape. I have another item here. It's a total brown cotton blanket. It's probably over 150 years old. And you can tell it's worn, but that's what people made them for. They made them to use. They probably went in a buckboard or a buggy. And when they went to the fields and worked, they went to the field and they put them under the trees, and their children stayed in the field with them. They didn't stay at the house and watch TV or MTV or anything like that. They actually went to the fields and stayed in the fields. So this is very worn and used. The Acadians actually made two styles of blankets. They either made a solid white or a solid brown, or they made stripes. And the stripes, they used either what we see here. You see the white cotton, you see the brown cotton, and you see the indigo dyed white cotton. And that was their typical patterns. And it could be just brown and white or indigo and brown, or whatever they decided they wanted to do. This is a commercial machine, and these are both hand spun and woven, and you can tell by the yarn, the thickness is much larger on the handmade and hand spun ones. But we only replicate those patterns up to the 1930s area, because after that, the Acadians and spinners and weavers started to actually get money, and they could buy red yarn, and they could buy green yarn, and they could buy all these different colors, and they started incorporating them into their blankets. There were a few that had green. There was a way to make a green, but that process wasn't used a whole lot. It was very difficult. So we try to stay with those traditional patterns that the Acadians made for their textiles.
So I'm noticing the stripes are kind of in the 2x2s in this brown and white. Oh, sorry. So I'm noticing that the patterns are in particular groupings in the striping. Is there a family pattern that different families would have a specific pattern that they would weave?
There may be patterns, but these are just some I picked. There's a variety.
Yeah.
One collection that I have, there's over 500 blankets that I have photographs of.
Okay.
That we pick from, so they can be a variety of alternator brown and white or alternating blue, brown, and white. So there's no specific pattern that everyone used. I'm sure families had some that the daughters would replicate what their mom did, but I haven't really seen or heard people talk about it. Now, some of the people who are spinners and weavers, who I am not, I'm strictly a farmer. They can tell you different. But I know one of the premier spinners and weavers in our area is a lady named Elaine Bort. She was the keeper of the seed, and she passed the seed on to me because she just can't plant and harvest that much. She only plants enough to keep her spinning and weaving going that she does. So to make a queen blanket, to hand spin and weave it would take about 1,100 hours. And that's not including warping the loom. So if you could find someone who would sell you a hand spun and woven blanket, you would pay in $1,800 to $3,600. They're very expensive, but most of them are people who don't have to sell them, and they don't sell them. They either give them to family, or they will sell them to family or friends. But they're very difficult to get new hand spun and woven blankets.
Right. So when you create the do you, you've talked about harvesting and ginning. Do you also do spinning? Or do you have a way to show the spinning process and shaking it down from
I only am a farmer.
only a farmer?
I hand plant all the seeds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I hand cultivate. I hoe my fields about 10 times every year myself. We hand pick. The difference between Acadian brown cotton and white cotton will bloom and boll and you pick it. Acadian brown cotton, it will bloom and boll, you pick it, and it will continue. It's related to hibiscus and okra. Mm-hmm. Last year we picked 12 times. The white cotton fiber is longer. The brown cotton fiber is shorter, and it was considered to be a poor man's cotton.
Okay.
So those are the differences between white and brown. And I was just talking to someone earlier, and they said, yeah, those white cotton bolls really hurt when you pick. Well, it does, because when you pick white cotton, you wait till it's really, really dry. In the end of that boll, it will prick you. Mm-hmm. But when you're picking brown cotton, it's in different stages. When you're picking some cotton, some more is blooming. So that boll is not as hard, and it doesn't hurt your fingers as bad.
Okay. And when you plant, do you plant just the brown, or do you have sections of white as well?
Only brown.
Only brown, okay.
So with Melrose Plantation, Miss Cammie Henry used to plant brown cotton here in Natchitoches Parish.
Okay.
Well, she picked her cotton, she spun and wove it. So all the cotton farmers around Natchitoches came to her and demanded that she stopped planting brown cotton. The reason why is she was close to white cotton, and the bees were cross-pollinating her white cotton and making it dingy, and they weren't getting a higher price for their cotton because it wasn't as white. Mm-hmm. So they forced her to stop growing brown cotton. You have to plant brown cotton, any other colored cotton or white cotton within at least 3 miles away from other cotton. They'll cross-pollinate it. So I do not grow any other cotton close to mine. I have friends that grow green for me. I have a friend now that's growing some Sea Island brown for me, but she's like 12 miles away. Okay. So I will not mix our seed because we're trying to keep this seed in South Louisiana. I have people all the time want to buy seed or me send them seed. We don't do that. We keep our seed regional.
Okay. So historically, a lot of the cotton ended up getting shipped north to be spun and woven.
Right.
Did brown cotton move that way, or was it only the white cotton that got shipped out?
Mostly the white cotton.
Okay.
And the reason all the cotton went to the east or to the north is because this is all flat prairie country. Mm. And you can't run looms on water power on flat land. So there were all these hills and water-driven grist mills and textile factories, and that's how they ran the looms, off water power. Because here, if you were to grind meal, we had to use mules or horses, so everything went to the East Coast so they could run all the mills off water power. And when electricity came about, all the mills are already set up. They're not going to move to the south because the mill towns were very large.
Okay.
So that's why all the textile spinners and weavers are on the East Coast and Northeast.
So you mentioned the educational programs that you have. What do you start them with? Do people just come in and follow the whole process, or do they just come in for specific events?
What we do, it depends on the group. If we're meeting at the field, we talk about planting, germination, the different things that happen to the plant when the square develops and when the flower blooms and the whole process of it to the boll. For example, when you plant your cotton and it starts getting squares, and the square is the first part of a bloom. And then one morning that bloom will break out of that square and the cotton will open up flat. and it is almost an ivory white, and it only opens in the morning, and it opens up flat because even on a cloudy day, that ivory white petal reflects any kind of light, and it's a landing pad for pollinators. So they eventually come right to that landing pad, and as soon as that flower is pollinated, it starts to close. So usually the time I get to the field around 6 or 6:30, that flower's already been pollinated and starting to close. The pollinators are that quick. And the petal will start veining. It will vein a beautiful pink color. And by the afternoon, it will close up. And the next morning, it will almost be a peach color. And then the next day, it'll be a purple color. And it will fall off. And then the bowl will start. And then it'll take 45 to 65 days for all those fibers inside to develop and turn into a fiber and for it to open, depending on the sun, the rain, and all those things that a farmer deals with every day. So some of the things that we say to each other, well, how's your crop going? We always just say, it's a farmer's life, because we don't ever know if we're going to get the rain or the sun. But in South Louisiana is not really ideal for cotton because of our thick gumbo soil. We get a lot of the puffy clouds from the Gulf of Mexico, and they overshadow our cotton. And cotton loves hot, dry sun to grow. And if you don't have that heat and that sun, it just won't grow as well. Now up in North and Northeast Louisiana, you have alluvial soil, which is laid down from all the sands from the Mississippi riverbed as this changed courses through Louisiana over the thousands of years. And it's easier for that to root and get a deep root. And you grow better cotton, higher cotton, in those areas because of that soil and the condition. And you don't have a lot of the cloud cover that we do in South Louisiana. Another thing, we have heavy winds, we have torrential downpours, and we have hurricanes. So the bad thing about cotton is the stem of a cotton is not really, really strong. So if you have a big wind and it blows down soybeans, well, the sun comes out and the soybeans will stand back up. Cotton shaft won't do that. If it's blown over by a hurricane, it's down. It just will not come back up. So it's really not ideal in South Louisiana. That's why cotton has eventually migrated from South Louisiana up to Central and Northeast Louisiana.
So you mentioned that the brown cotton you pick multiple times throughout
Yes,
the year, but you also mentioned that you plant your seeds by hand.
I do.
So it's, at what point do you start your season and what point do you end your season?
So I watch the weather, and we're in South Louisiana, we're semi-tropical. So we don't have the cold weather that North Louisiana has. So if I can get in the ground by mid to late March, now you're asking me to tell my secrets. So if I can get in the ground by late March, I will, because then I get to take advantage of the spring rains, which will help my cotton root deep. And so right now, my cotton, I'm already getting cotton bolls 2 weeks ago. And people in North Louisiana I'm opening cotton. So people here in North Louisiana probably won't get opening cotton for a month or more. So.
Okay. And how many times would you get to pick throughout the year now? So you've got your first
10 to 12 times.
10 to 12.
Last year I picked 12 times.
Oh my word.
So we have events, we have educational programs like I told you, and I send out a newsletter to everyone that are friends of Acadian Brown Cotton of Louisiana and say, we're going to pick Sunday afternoon, and we only do it for 2 hours. And people come out, some people want to pick, some people want to take photos. I tell history about growing up on the plantation. I've been on picking crews on the plantation farm with over 100 people picking or 100 people hoeing cotton. So I have a few stories that I tell. And just give people a sense of what it's like and kind of an idea of what people went through growing cotton. And people still do today.
Mm-hmm. Could you share a couple of those stories?
I'll tell you a good story.
That sounds great.
So with each one of our textiles that we sell, we try to give some type of history. So we have something we've developed is called a cotton ticket. So on the plantation, when you would gin cotton, you gin it in a press, and once you've gotten all in a press, it rotates around. The press is pressing the cotton down. They put the burlap over it. They put the metal bands on it and lock them in. And then they tell everybody to get back, and they release the press, and the cotton starts to expand. And you have to stay away from it, because if any of the buckles or anything comes off, they can kill somebody. It's very, very dangerous. But they would let the cotton bale relax, and then they'd take it out. They'd cut the burlap on both sides, and they would take a sample off both sides. And with this cotton ticket, it tells the name of the plantation, the weight of the bale, the number of the bale, and it will have all kinds of information on this cotton ticket. And it has 3 numbers, and they're perforated. So you tear the first number off, and you put it in that cotton sample, and you roll that cotton sample up, and you send it to the brokerage house. The second ticket you tear off goes to the owner that owns that cotton that you bale for them. Not every plantation had a cotton gin. Ours had a cotton gin, and we baled for 4 or 5 other plantations. And then the last ticket is the bale ticket. You wire it to the bale, and it's shipped to a warehouse. So on the day of the cotton sale, they roll all these out with the tickets. They have an auctioneer. It goes really, really fast. And they have a guy that writes down who wins that bid. And then they have a guy that picks up your ticket for you if you win it. You don't pick it up yourself if you won that bid. They'll hand it to you. And after the sale, they take all the tickets to the paymaster. You pay for all your cotton, and you take that ticket and go out on the docks and find your cotton bale. And they still do that today.
Okay.
So with every one of our textiles, we give a cotton ticket. So that helps us teach a little history.
Absolutely. So does anyone have any questions?
Where did they do that?
At the plantation I grew up,
Okay, Burbridge.
Robinson Plantation on Highway 1. And at Scopina Plantation on Highway 71.
Okay.
How did you date the age of those 2 different blankets? You said one with the white stripe was older than
Yeah.
the regular?
This is a gift
Okay.
by a friend that he bought it from the Mouton Plantation, they told me. This I got a call 2 years ago from a guy in Baton Rouge. And he said, my great-grandmother wove an Acadian brown cotton blanket, and it's been passed down to my family. I don't want it. I'm throwing it away. Do you want it?
Oh my.
In 45 minutes, I was sitting at his house in Baton Rouge. So that's how I aged it. So
But if we didn't have that information, what would you say would be? the
it's
way-
very hard. There's few of the older weavers alive that a lot of them can tell who the weavers were. They're that good. And Miss Elaine Bork in South Louisiana, she's compiling a history of spinners and weavers right now, and she's amazing.
She used to come and spin here at this festival for
Yeah.
a number of years.
Yeah. Now she has an understudy right now, Austin Clark, and I'm working with him, and we're going to do some
Is that Lila
programs.
Clark's,
I
relative?
don't think they have any relationship, but he is really doing well, and he's very into spinning and weaving. Now we don't sell any of our fibers, but when I find a spinner and weaver who does education and programs, I give them fiber, but I do not sell. A lot of the other people who grow, they sell their fiber, but we don't. We use it as a platform for education. How many?
States.
Well, there is probably about 4 states. It's really dying. Mississippi has a brown cotton. There's a few people that have seeds from Mississippi brown cotton, but it doesn't have a good name, so a lot of people don't grow it because of the name. I know there's some brown cotton just out in California, and it has moved to Arizona because the pig population in California has destroyed a lot of the farm fields there, and a lot of the people in the state of California won't allow you to kill the pigs that's tearing up your farmland. So they're moving to other states.
So that, I was thinking kind of along the same lines, you had said that you don't sell your seed either. And that made me think across kind of all points of agriculture, they're talking about how farmers are aging out and they're retiring, and there's not always somebody interested in taking over their farms.
Right.
So what, do y'all have people coming up behind y'all that are gonna take this over, or should the distribution of seed not be something that y'all think about so that this continues, on?
I have 3 young growers that's growing with me. They've started off, each one of them has less than a quarter. One went up to less than a half acre this year. He's a well-known Cajun musician, 3rd generation. And then I have another person that he's getting involved. So I'm all the time encouraging young people. One of my planters I'm really encouraged, he's in his 30s, but his soul, he's about 80. So he's an old soul person, so he's gonna grow a lot. So I'm constantly training and helping other people. And there are other people out there who I work with, and they'll grow 4 or 5 in their yard. But I work with them because with all cotton in the state of Louisiana, and every state, you have to apply for the boll weevil eradication program. So if there's someone that wants to grow 4 or 5 plants in their yard, I will give them the seeds and I will show them how to apply. Because if boll weevils get in our field, they come and check our fields every week to 2 weeks. And if there's a boll weevil in the boll weevil trap there, we have to plow the field that day. That doesn't matter if we've just planted or if we're picking cotton.
Have you ever had to do that?
No, I have not.
Thank goodness.
What is
So-
wrong with the Mississippi brown cotton?
Well, it's just the name that it has. That
Just because it's from Mississippi.
yeah, it doesn't have a positive name for a lot of people.
So, at what stage did you decide to start moving toward education as well as maintaining the farm?
Well, the first 2 years, I was mainly interested in preserving this seed that was dying. So that was kind of my focus of helping preserve the seed because of my background as a coming from a farm family. Then after I realized, oh my goodness, I've got all this fiber. What am I going to do with this fiber? So we kind of figured out that hey, let's reproduce some historic patterns, and keep it alive. And it's kind of just found its way for us. And I've always liked the educational portion of it. And my wife's an educator, so it was kind of just naturally fit, A lot of times I wonder what my father and grandfather and great-grandfather would say if I was out in the field picking and hoeing and everything else, after they spent so many years, toiling and being poor and that kind of thing. So.
But you get to share their stories this way.
One of the stories I love to tell about growing up on the plantation is we used to, when we planted cotton and it started coming up, the plantation would buy over 1,000 to 1,500 geese. And they had a goose barn. And they would have someone sit in the goose barn 24 hours a day to keep the predators out from killing the small geese. And as a cotton grew and got about this tall, and the geese grew, they would drive them to the fields day and night. And the geese would eat weeds and grass, but they will not eat white cotton. And they'd drive them 24 hours a day through the fields. And occasionally they'd bring them back to the goose house for, a night or two, and then they'd drive them back out to the fields. And the reason they will not eat cotton is because underneath white cotton, if you tear the leaf off, underneath there's little barbs, and they can't stand it on the tip of their tongue. And at the end of the season, everyone who lived on the plantation would kill the geese for food. So a lot of people don't understand plantation life. Plantation life was a community. We had a general store. They sold everything from fish hooks to Sunday shoes and saddles and cartridges and everything you can name. If you couldn't order it, if you couldn't buy it, you could order it in the catalog. And it was kind of the center of the plantation. And on Saturdays when we weren't planting or harvesting, everyone would meet at the store, and that's where they get paid, and people would pay off their debts at the store, and they'd visit, and so it was kind of the center of the community, and everyone worked with each other, and it was just like a neighborhood kind of thing. So.
The pollinators, do y'all rely just on the natural pollinators of the environment, or do y'all partner up with beekeepers?
Natural pollinators, we have tons of pollinators. When I'm in the field in the morning, they're everywhere. Even the hummingbirds. I mean, I'm out usually early in the morning, and most all of it that has opened up early in the break of dawn already pollinated. They're very quick, so we don't have any trouble with pollinators. One of the problems that we have is pesticides. There's so many farmers that use pesticides on everything. We do not use any pesticides, and we use no herbicides. We just don't use them. And that's hurt us. Growing up on the plantation, we were trying to deal with boll weevils and other kind of insects, and they were using DDT. And DDT managed to kill almost all the fireflies. They killed a lot of birds. They killed a lot of insects. It was not good for the environment. And the people. Many people had problems, health problems from it over the years.
So how does cotton interact with the soil? Do you need to leave areas fallow? When you plow it back in, does it reinvigorate the soil
Yeah.
so that the cotton grows? Could you
Yeah.
talk about that a bit?
Sure. All we do is plow ours under. Any seeds that I have left over, I put them back in the ground because people buy cottonseed meal all the time. So cotton seeds are the same thing. They're just not ground up. So I just put them back. I do not use any fertilizers, any growth stimulants, anything else. We try to keep it very basic as much as we can, like the Acadians did.
Okay. And were there complementary plants that they would put in to assist with the soil biome at all, or?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay.
I know that the Indians, when they grew corn, they grew different type of vegetables underneath their corn
Yeah.
to help control weeds.
Yeah.
But with cotton, after a certain time, it creates a canopy, so it helps slow down the weed growth. So I don't do anything like
So
that.
you don't need to with cotton. Okay.
Plus, you'd trip over that if you're picking cotton. So
There's always that part, yeah.
yeah. So
Is the boll weevil still a big problem? And if it is, how do y'all battle that if you don't use pesticides?
the boll weevil was announced eradicated from the state of Louisiana, I think, in 1997. It migrated up through Mexico into Texas, and then through Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Arizona. So it came from the south up north. But all of the states have boll weevil eradication programs. So I'm considered an ornamental cotton grower. I don't have to pay anything to apply to grow cotton, but the white cotton farmers, they have to pay so much per acre to plant white cotton. But they also have to apply. And you don't see them, but they have boll weevil traps in their fields also. If you look on my table, you'll see a little yellow cone, and in the top of it is a little area, and it has a little card in there. And they put a pheromone on that card so it attract boll weevils. It's Chanel number 5 for boll weevils. And if it gets in there, then that's when we have to plow our fields. And they do check, because he calls me all the time.
Do you have people that buy brown cotton from you to weave like this directly?
No, I do not sell my fiber to anyone. Like I said, I donate to people who are educators and who are on special projects and promote Acadian brown cotton, but I do not sell. I have people call me every week, you know, we want to buy yarn or we want to buy or fiber, and I said, we don't sell. We use it as an educational platform.
If an educator wanted to get in touch with you, do you talk to them about how
Oh,
to get
absolutely.
involved with?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you tell us how that process has gone? If you had interesting projects come up with, like, I want to try this with your brown cotton?
So I've had, there's a group of spinners and weavers that has a Facebook page. There's over 2,000 worldwide.
Okay.
And so I communicate with them that way. One of the really fun things that happened to us last year was the Selvage World's Fair Textiles out of London selected us as one of their participants in the World's Fair. So we applied, not thinking we would get in. So they had over 1,000 applicants, and they picked 150 people who is part of the World's Fair of Textiles, and they selected us as one of their people for the World's Fair. So we're very excited to be a part of that.
Okay.
Only because of our history, you know. But
Well, that's amazing. So we're getting close to 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any final questions?
and there's some of my cotton pickers back there.
It's easy. It's easy.
Okay. And is there anything that you'd like to, a note you would like to end on?
Sure, I have a Facebook page,
Okay.
Acadian Brown Cotton of Louisiana. If you will pick up a card at our booth and email us, I will put you on our newsletter. And anytime we're having an event or we're picking cotton or just having a Cotton Field Days is coming up soon where we'll all meet at the field and we'll talk about the growth cycle of cotton. You don't have to pick, you can just come out and watch, enjoy the afternoon, see cotton, bring your grandkids, or just have a fun day. So we usually do it on a Sunday afternoon when nothing's really going on, and hope that you get on our list and be on our email and be a part of our history.
Would you host a school group, like a field trip?
Absolutely, I do it all the time. Last year I had, even with COVID, I had over 600 children.
Were some of them smaller than the cotton?
No, they were usually,
Okay.
usually 5th and 6th grade is the ideal grades to
Okay.
help with that. But on my Facebook page, you'll see some of the children that come, and they are very excited about learning how to plant. And they will be coming, the ones that planted this year, when school takes back in, they'll be coming back to pick. So we let them see the whole cycle.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for talking
Thank
to
you.
us. Yeah. Okay.